earliest accounts of UFOs ever recorded may be contained within the pages of the Holy Bible. The saga of events that once played out against the landscape of the Middle East is enshrined in the Western world's most revered book, the Holy Bible. In recent years, the Bible has been increasingly touted by some investigators as a collection of stories describing encounters with aliens and UFOs. But the topic is controversial. Can the sacred nature of the biblical texts be challenged?
With the decline of religion that has been experienced by a great many people, I think people are looking for an alternative that is more scientific. And so the possibility of life is one that has been suggested by scientists. So the next best thing to having a supernatural intervention in our world is to have UFOs visiting us from another civilization. So I think there's a certain would-be religious urge that has moved in the direction of supporting UFOs.
The search for humanity's first possible contact with alien beings in prehistoric times leads to an unlikely place, to the Bible's earliest chapters, to the book of Genesis. Genesis describes conditions in the world at the dawn of time.
There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Genesis 6:4.
Exactly who were the giants in the earth and the sons of God mentioned in the text? While most English Bibles use the word giants, the original Hebrew word is Nephilim.
One translation of the word Nephilim is the men who came down, or those who came down, meaning those who came down from the sky. So it may not mean necessarily that they're physical giants. They could just be something like great heroes that came down from the sky and produced a hybrid race.
For many investigators hoping to unlock the mystery of UFOs in the ancient world, the Bible contains other intriguing clues.
The Bible is full of UFO references that can be interpreted as such, and they were very well recorded. One of the best examples of classic UFO story is the story of Moses.
3,500 years ago, an epic period in biblical history begins when Israelite slaves are finally released from bondage in Egypt. Under the leadership of Moses, they begin a 40-year trek through the wilderness, en route to the Promised Land. But according to the Bible, something very mysterious guides the multitude through the barren desert.
Went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light. Exodus 14:21.
Some believe the biblical passage contains another dimension to the meaning long cherished by most Christians and Jews.
Some people interpret the pillar of smoke and the pillar of fire that Moses followed through the wilderness as being similar to a cigar-shaped UFO. It expresses a theme of an extraterrestrial intelligence, some sort of advanced form of life and intelligence that's guiding man, something that's higher than man.
Some of the most intriguing biblical passages concern Mount Sinai and the handing down of the Ten Commandments.
Mount Sinai was covered in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke ascended as the smoke in a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked loudly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded and waxed louder, Moses spake, and God answered. Exodus 19:18.
When Moses returns with the Ten Commandments after his encounter with God or Jehovah on Mount Sinai, his skin mysteriously shines with an unearthly glow. His hair has turned snow white.
The story of Moses has been tied in with an extraterrestrial encounter. His hair was turned white, which some have linked with the possibility of radiation exposure and so forth. It's easy to see how this could be regarded as a classic UFO encounter.
The notion that the Israelites may have been led to the Promised Land by some form of extraterrestrial entity has attracted many adherents in the last few decades. But understandably, scientists and religious leaders fiercely challenge the idea.
We're dealing very much with an interpretation, and we're dealing with an issue that I think has potential for being highly controversial, because after all, if you say that Jehovah is an ET, then that changes the basis of Judaism and Christianity in a very fundamental way. But it is a question of interpretation.
It's so easy to speculate. You can look at almost any story and find something that could have been signs of an extraterrestrial. But what you have to do, if you want to have such an incredible explanation, you have to have very strong proof. Otherwise, you're just gullible.
Hints at possible biblical connections with extraterrestrials or UFOs are not confined to the book of Exodus. In the second book of Kings, there is the intriguing story of the prophet Elijah, who lived around 900 years before the time of Jesus. While Elijah crosses the river Jordan with his son Elisha, a strange airborne craft appears.
And it came to pass as they went on and talked that, behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind unto heaven. And Elisha saw it and cried, and saw his father no more. 2 Kings 2:11.
In all ancient cultures, you will have descriptions of flying chariots of different kinds. For example, a chariot drawn by horses that flies through the sky and so on. In many cases, people today will interpret these as UFOs, that is, some kind of vehicle that flies under its own power.
Just over 3 centuries after Elijah's ascent into heaven in a chariot of fire, another strange incident occurs. This time it concerns the Hebrew prophet Ezekiel. He is believed by some to have encountered alien spaceships on at least 4 separate occasions. In one account, he describes a clearly mechanical device under the control of human-like figures.
I saw 4 wheels, one wheel beside each cherub. In appearance, they were like sparkling topaz, and all 4 were alike, like a wheel within a wheel. They moved in any 4 directions, never swerving from their course. Ezekiel 10:8.
Based on the biblical description of the strange flying device, in the 1960s, NASA engineer Joseph Blumrich constructed this model. Is this what Ezekiel saw?
I don't know what Ezekiel saw, if he saw anything. One possibility is he was dreaming. Another possibility, he had some hallucinogenic mushroom or something of that sort. Another possibility is that he met another tribe that might have had torches and masks that were very frightening to him, and he just saw something otherworldly that he couldn't explain, and so he made up this story that explained it as best as he could with the terms that he understood in his time.
Despite the ambiguity of biblical accounts, other records from prehistory have intensified the debate. Some could be interpreted to suggest that UFOs and extraterrestrials have influenced pivotal events in human history.